Who was Frederick Douglass? Frederick Douglass was born a slave in Tuckahoe, Maryland around the year 1818. I say around the year because slaves were not allowed to know the year that they were born. Frederick was born to his mother, Harriet Bailey, and he was originally Frederick Bailey. When he was just a baby, he was ripped away from his mother, and then he was renamed Frederick Douglass. Frederick's mother was a very dark-skinned woman, as he explains in his narrative, and he did not see too much of her because they lived on two separate plantations. And this was on purpose, done by the slave masters, ripping him and his mother apart from each other. Frederick's father was a white man, and a white man believed to be his slave master when he was just a boy. Frederick barely knew his mother. They lived, as I said, on two different plantations. From what I remember in his narrative, he says that they lived about 7 to 9 miles apart. The only times that Frederick saw his mother was by night, and that was because it was not allowed for them to see each other. So Frederick's mother would have to risk being caught to walk that 7 to 9 miles to see her son, and she would see him only for some small amount of time, and she would be gone by the time that he woke up. And this was not frequent. This was just a few times that he was able to see his mother, and she was able to see him. Frederick learned to read and write by his slave master's wife, Sophia. This was definitely an instrumental part in his life. As Frederick Douglass moves up in his life, a big part of his craft is his pen and his speeches and his letters. Frederick escaped slavery on Monday, September 3rd, 1838. What a beautiful thing. Frederick Douglass also explains that he will not disclose how he escaped slavery. I assume because the slave masters anywhere might read what he says and try to prevent their slaves from doing the same. And Frederick is about the abolition of slavery, and so he wants as many free slaves as possible. Frederick did not waste his freedom, but instead he used his knowledge for the abolition movement and for women's rights. Frederick spent 4 years fighting for women's rights and for the abolition of slavery. Sometime during his freedom, he began to really fear his recapture, for slave masters to come after him and recapture him, because this is a man that's fighting for the abolition of slavery, and he's winning ears. Like, white people are listening to him, because he's a man that has something to say. So not only would they come to recapture him just because he is their property, but now they might want to capture him again because he might be the piece that ends slavery. So just as a way to keep him quiet, they might try to recapture him. Frederick finds sanctuary in the United States. There were many parts in the world that Frederick went to as he traveled in the abolition movement that he was not welcome. He was looked down upon and even spoke down upon, and I say that, and I realize that's an understatement. But Frederick definitely writes about just the places that he finds in the United States that he can find sanctuary and rest and just be treated as a human being, as he should. Frederick was even nominated as the Vice President of the United States. What a big accomplishment for someone that grew up a slave. How crazy, honestly. Frederick Douglass lived a very powerful life. He was born a slave and then he fought for the freedom of others. He was an influencer to all groups of people. Frederick was a big believer in Jesus Christ, and I believe that that's definitely one of the things that guided him through his life and why he became such a great man that he was. This is my presentation on Frederick Douglass, and I hope this encourages you to dive deeper into your knowledge about slavery, not only slavery, but Frederick Douglass himself. What a great man. Thank you.